Back live and inside the game in the National Soccer Network, wherever you are, however you may be listening. Nate Wangler back alongside Ryan Glinsky here. The penultimate episode of this week on Inside the Game. Ryan, I know we got a lot to get to on this show here today. Talking a little bit about Arsenal advancing to the EFL Cup final. Can they win the quadruple? I know that's something you're probably a little excited about. Also want to get your reaction from the other semifinal. Weston Mckennie, we're going to talk a lot about him, was named the player of the month in the month of January for Juventus. Now, mind you, this is a U.S. men's national team player who's had his contract under negotiation, I feel like, for the last 3 years. This is a player that it feels like they've almost been trying to get rid of for the last 3 years. Lately, he's been their best option. We're also going to talk about Missouri State a little bit and a unique look to their roster construction. Not a single American on the team. Very interesting when you look at that. We'll get into more of our all sports content a little bit later on. But Ryan, I wanted to start with this today because I know we like feel good stories on the National Soccer Network. It's a nice thing about sports, right? We get to talk about things that are cool and fun, and everyone gets to get behind it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I love this time of year is because college basketball is simply the best. And it doesn't matter how much it changes in terms of the money component and NIL and all that other stuff. Basketball is just one of those games where if you can shoot, you can win. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter anything like that. If you can get open and if you can shoot, if you just so happen to get hot, there's a pretty good chance that you can end up winning a game. It's the reason why everybody in America loves March Madness as much as they do. Even people that aren't like traditionally sports people, they just like seeing the madness of something like March Madness. And last night we got another example of that. I don't know if you saw this, but the Portland Pilots, who are 11-14 this year, snapped Gonzaga's 15-game winning streak to beat the Zags 87-80 in that game. They were 22.
I wonder who beat Gonzaga the first time. I wonder who the last loss was.
Ooh, yeah.
Curious.
Maybe the hangover effect. I was going to talk about that later on with Michigan and MSU, but yeah, Portland ends up taking down number 6 Gonzaga for their first ever top 10 win. I think that comes as no shock to anybody, but congrats to Portland. That's probably the upset of the year, one of the biggest we've seen in quite some time.
Probably biggest upset,
at least in the regular season.
I can't think of any others at the top of my head. But no, I think people like sports for reasons like that, and people like the game of basketball, like March Madness, and college basketball for that exact reason. I mean, I will say there's a certain extent in when it comes to March Madness of how many upsets are, everyone truly wants. Everyone says they want upsets all over the place, but the further you get into the tournament, you don't want as many upsets as you
murky's
do.
The water a little bit. Yeah, I get that.
Shout out the Final Four of FAU, San Diego State, Miami, and UConn. No one really wanted that. Like,
Miami always finds their way to kind of sneak in there, don't they?
They
always find a way to capitalize on the chaos.
Everyone's like, we love the upsets. Yeah, but once you get deep into the tournament, you don't really like it. But no, I think.
Well, the number one still win the majority of the time. Like, people forget that, but it's fun to see it in the first round or couple of rounds.
Yeah, that's why everyone likes cup competitions. It's single elimination. That's why everyone likes March Madness. That's why people like the World Cup, because once you get out of the group stage, it's win or go home, and there's upsets that happen all over the place. Which, mind you, I'm compiling a list of the best World Cup moments of all time. I'm about over halfway done, but I'm running into a roadblock of moments. So I don't really want to dive into the 50s or the 30s, but I might have to. So if people got any suggestions, comment them anywhere or comment on any of our videos, because I need some help. But anyway, that's why people like that sport and like these competitions, and especially basketball. I mean, basketball is a sport where if you have one or two players, you have a very good chance of winning every single game. You could have if you have two 20-point scorers a night, you have a good chance of winning every game, regardless of who you're playing, because of it being basketball, and you can get hot at the right time and get hot at any point. Like, you could
Yeah.
have 5 wins playing against the best team in the country, and that 5-win team could win it all or could beat them because they could get hot that particular night, and the number 1 team gets cold. So that's why people love that sport. But I also don't mind seeing Gonzaga lose in basketball because, like, I really don't like them because they play in the West Coast Conference, and that tournament's weird over there, and they play nobody from like from November or December on, and it's just I don't like them.
I also like learning the random names as we go, just the guys that exist in college athletics that you never really know about until they show up in those big moments. Normally in March, this time in February, but like Joel Foxwell with 27 points. I didn't know who Joel Foxwell was a day ago, but now I know because of what he did against Gonzaga. So, anyways, I would say my favorite upset though in that regard had to be UMBC in Virginia, simply because of the mascot. I don't think I know another
The
school in the country
Terriers?
that's the no, they're the Retrievers.
Oh,
Remember the
Retrievers, my
Retrievers? They
bad.
were the Golden Retrievers. Yeah, so that was one of the teams immediately bought a jersey after that game.
Did you
Immediately, no
actually?
hesitation on that one. I did.
Oh,
I did. I got it hanging around. I'm not much of a jersey wearer. Like, I get jerseys and then they just end up sitting around until the situation's perfect for me
I
to
don't
wear
buy
it.
jerseys, like, period.
Kind of like my Soviet Union hockey jersey. I just don't, I haven't seen the perfect opportunity to throw that one
Should have wore
on.
it during the Miracle.
Oh,
Should have
yeah,
wore it during your
exactly.
Eight Boys of 80, which I still haven't watched.
It's really good if you get the chance. But let's get into this first hour here on Inside the Game. Arsenal with a chance to win the quadruple. First of all, Ryan, wanted to get your predictions on or not predictions, but rather your reaction to the other semifinal and what you're looking forward to the most, maybe your top 3 going into that EFL Cup final.
Well, a lot of things can happen between now and March 22nd. A lot of things can happen. So, I don't really know what to expect yet. Ask me a week out, and I'll tell you something, because injuries,
That's
and
fair.
Man City's had some injury crisis, and Arsenal's had some injury crisis, and I don't know
Yeah.
how everyone's gonna be playing up until then. But what am I expecting in that game is, can the teacher or can the student beat the teacher finally? Well, not finally, but in a big competition like that, we've seen Arteta do it in 2020. Would be the last time he beat Pep in a cup competition in the FA Cup semifinal, which, again, that Arsenal team was a social experiment. I don't care what anyone says, but when your back line consists of David Luiz, Socrates, Hector Bellerin, and Skodran Mustafi, that is a social experiment. I don't know how in the world they won a trophy that year, but they did. But just the 3 things I'm looking at is, please don't start Kepa in the final. Just make Raya the keeper, please. Kepa sucks. I hate him. He's horrible.
Yeah.
Two, I would say is how does Arsenal play? Do they come out firing? Do they sit back a little bit more? How they typically do against Man City in big moments? We'll have to wait and see. And third is the another not a takeaway I'll see from this. Again, it's still a little ways away, because the winner of this game, the winner of the Carabao Cup final, I think ultimately could decide the English Premier League title. And what do I mean by this? Both of these teams, I imagine, would still be at the top of the table, within a game or 2 of each other. I would imagine. Again, these are all hypotheticals at this point, because I don't know who's going to be
Yeah.
where in a month and a half. Because if they're within a game, and if you get that motion of just going like this with the trophy, does that give you a little bit of an edge going the rest of the way? Because ultimately they will play each other one other time in the season. About April 18th, I think, is the date. And that could
Yeah.
ultimately decide the title. And we know Man City likes to go on runs towards the end of the season where they don't lose a game within 12. And Arsenal's won 17 out of 18. And then that one loss cost them the title. So we've seen that before. But ultimately, I think the winner of this game, the winner of the Carabao Cup, could ultimately win the Premier League title. Obviously, a lot of things can happen. I could be completely wrong in this for all I know, but I think whoever wins that one is going to get like a mental edge that they can ultimately be able to get it done in the run-in, get it done across the line, And I ultimately think this is probably the biggest game of on Arsenal's schedule, because if they win this game, I think they're given the confidence and they're given the mentality boost that, you know what, they can actually win a trophy. They can actually win. They can actually dethrone Man City and get them to the
Yeah.
end. Whereas if they lose, it could ultimately help them crumble, and a lot of people will start saying, "Oh, it's just same old Arsenal. Man City's going to get it done like they always do." And Arsenal hasn't won a
Yeah.
trophy. Well, I guess if you count the Community Shield, 2023, but they haven't won a true trophy since 2020. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think the Carabao Cup will decide the Premier League.
And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it really has a sense of they do control their own destiny. It
Oh
feels like
yeah, they
Arsenal
do.
is in control of. I mean, the cards, they have the right cards, they have the right stack right now. They ESPN actually just released an article I was reading a little bit before we came into the show today, talking about how they're the best in the world right now, and they could potentially even get better. They're so sound defensively. I mean, you talked about the pace of play. That was something that they mentioned. It's the slower pace of play as you were talking about, but they are, at least according to this ranking, and again, they went 1 through 20 in the Premier League. It's Arsenal, Man City, number 1 and number 2, but they like a lot of the things that they've seen from them. So this is a squad that, I don't know, Ryan, at least me personally, I think that they control their destiny in terms of what happens moving forward. And I don't know. Yeah, you do have the weight of that disappointment maybe weighing on your shoulders a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree. Sorry, I just got a text from someone I went to school with that just said, "I love your TikToks." So shout out to you, Ted. Shout out to you, my man.
What's
Thank you,
up, Ted?
thank you,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. All
Um,
right.
but no, I think you're right, and the only reason
Yeah.
that like I'm questionable on if Arsenal can ultimately win the league. We can get to the quadruple discussion after this, but I'm skeptical of them winning the league is because of what they've done previously in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, bottling it. They've only truly bottled it one time, and that was when they were super young back in 2022, 23. Yeah, that season. They were super young, and they weren't even expected to be in the title race, and then Saliba gets hurt, and they didn't have the squad depth back then, and it was basically just like 13 players that they had that could really compete for the title. So it was a little bit difficult, but after that starting 11, they had nobody. The year after that, that's when they said they won 17 and 18. They had a bad start, then they go on that crazy run, and ultimately they lose the league on the final day. And then last year they were just behind the 8 ball from the get go, and Liverpool just couldn't lose, and it was all that stuff. But now it feels different in terms of the Premier League. It feels different, and maybe it's because Man City isn't as dominant as they normally are and all that stuff, and they typically are a better team. They have better players normally, and they're dropping points when they typically don't. And they're playing games, or the way they're playing isn't how they normally play, and that's something that also is different. But then I look at Arsenal, and everyone is like, well, the corner kicks, the set pieces, the own goals. Well, they're going in the back of the net. And if you look
Yeah.
back in 5 years' time, and if Arsenal ultimately wins this league, you're not going to look back in 5 years and be like, "Wow, they scored a ton of own goals. They scored a ton from set pieces." All that matters is
Yeah.
the ball goes in the back of the net and you get 3 points at the end of the day. It's the only thing that matters, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Is
If
is it crazy to me that one of their top goal scorers is people that score own goals for them? Yeah, absolutely, that's
yeah.
crazy to me. But at the same time, if the ball ends up in the back of the net, they do not care. What's
Yeah.
the old saying of winning championships? It's like, doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get it done, and that's exactly what they're doing. And I ultimately feel they're 6 points top right now. They've played poorly up until the last game. They've played poorly since the Aston Villa game, really, until the last one against Leeds where they won 4-0. But it still feels different, even though they had a bad run of results with Liverpool and Nottingham Forest and then Man United. But it feels different. It just feels like there's like that
Yeah.
psychological edge of we can finally get that done. And if they win the Carabao Cup, I think that just takes them over the top and they ultimately get it done.
If you look at the numbers, and there's part of the article that I'm reading, and I think it's kind of eye opening. If you strip out penalties and set pieces, then if you stack everybody up in the Premier League in terms of their goal differential, Arsenal is a close second to Liverpool right now in the Premier League. They're second if you take out all set pieces and penalties. So
Can
to
you say
to
that
just
again
assume
for
that
all of the world, please?
Arsenal, if you were to take out penalties and set pieces, is still second in the Premier League in goal differential. one step behind Liverpool. There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you for all of social media land out there.
That's that's your line for the day. But then when you add all that in, they actually have the largest goal differential comfortably, may I add. It's not even close between them and Man City. So, number one, they take advantage of their set piece opportunities. They take advantage of their penalties, and they're so if you put yourself in a bad position defensively, they're gonna take advantage of it. That's what good teams do. I mean, to use my dumb American brain as an equivalent, it's like hitting your free throws. Okay, if you hit your free ones, pretty good chance you're going to win the game. So that's what Arsenal does. They hit their free ones, they hit their freebies, they hit their good set pieces. So when you add that all together with how they're already putting up a lot of goals and are top 2 in the Premier League in goal differential, then yeah, you have a pretty damn good team who has a chance to go win something of significance for the first time in a long time. So the line of all they need is that it's all the penalties and the set pieces. Well, that was just debunked. So, they're going to have to find a new excuse, Ryan. That's all I'm saying.
It
They
feels
have
like
to find a new one.
It feels like with this team, and it feels like the whole world, that the moment that this team wins something significant, and if they ever win a Premier League or a Champions League, I think the world might end. Like, everyone constantly moves the goal back for them. Everyone I'm already
For what it's
prepared.
worth, I thought that was going to happen when Michigan won a national championship. I thought the earth might crumble, or at least parts of it.
Yeah,
parts of Ohio, East Lansing.
And by the way, I forget who did it, but when Liverpool ultimately won their first league during the COVID year, and there was an article that came, I don't forget what the writer was, but it came out and he talked about how Liverpool hired a throw-in coach that actually helped them a lot, actually created a lot of chances, and they scored goals from it, and they scored goals from set pieces. And that same writer said something like how set pieces can win you a Premier League. Then we fast forward to last year, and that same writer comes out and says about how bad set pieces are for the game because Arsenal's scoring them. And to sit there and say that there is not a bias towards Arsenal, that's just a straight up lie, because there 100% is a bias, and it's weird because I don't get it. There's some world class players on this team. There's Saliba, Gabriel. I think Raya is too. He's an absolute dog. Declan Rice is world class. Could you say Saka? I think he's just borderline. I think he's just on the outside looking in terms of world class. But there are some world class players all over the place. Jurgen Timber is one of the most underrated defenders in all of world soccer. He's unbelievable. And it's just I'm looking at this and it's like, I don't get why there's a set bias towards this team. Maybe it's because they don't want them to ever win because of the following that there is. So many celebrities love this team. So many musicians, actors, everybody really likes this team. And to see them win something, I don't think anyone wants. And there's 100% a bias around this team. But I know we're a little bit behind. But to say, can they win the quadruple is ultimately the question. Could they win the quadruple? I don't think they do. I really don't.
It's always rich when someone figures out a way of doing something more effectively on the field than everybody else, and all of a sudden it becomes a problem.
That or not not traditional ways. That too.
Yeah.
Why did Cignetti get a lot of hate? Actually, Cignetti's ruining football because of how quickly he did it, and now that's the standard. He's now the standard, and now you look at Dusty May and it's coming out that he's tampering this, and that. People don't like it because it's not traditional. And that's another thing, is it's not traditional to win the Premier League off set pieces and own goals. But when it goes in the net and you gain 3 points, who cares? But could Arsenal win the quadruple? I ultimately don't think they do. But could they win multiple trophies? 100%. I think that if a team were to ever win a quadruple, you've got to have an insane squad. You've got to have 19, 20 players, which they do, but it's never been done. I don't think they do it. I mean, you have to have 19, 20 players to play. You got to play, 50-plus games probably, maybe 60-plus games, 70-plus games, because ultimately, they've put themselves in a good spot. They've skipped the round of 32 for the Champions League. They're already in the round of 16. They're the number 1 seed. They're number 1 in the Premier League. They're already in the Cup final for the Carabao Cup. They have a favorable draw in the next round of the FA Cup. Could they do it?
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's too much for a team. I feel like that's just too much to do all in one season. And to win that many, we've only seen a couple of trebles. We've seen United do it, we've seen City do it, and I think we've seen Barca do it, and I think Bayern Munich technically has done it, but that's the Bundesliga. That don't count. There's like no teams in that league. That don't count. Champions
Yeah.
League was only an impressive one. But like there's so many games that you have to be so mentally focused to do, and they've never won a Champions League either. And the reason I think
Yeah.
partially why I say this is they've never won anything big in 20 years. Since I've been born, they haven't won anything big, and that's why I say that they can't do it. And maybe that's a little bit lazy to say that they can't do it because they haven't done anything before, but they haven't proven it yet. And it's
Yeah.
hard for me to say that they will ultimately win more than one trophy and more than one major trophy because they haven't done it. And if they do it, oh, I swear to God, if they somehow do it, we're gonna have a fun show for like a while.
You taking a
Just 'cause I'm
naked
just gonna be
lap
an
around the
asshole.
neighborhood?
I'm just gonna be an
You
asshole.
taking a naked lap? You taking a
Oh.
naked lap around the neighborhood?
No, I wouldn't do that.
I almost did it when the Cubs won it in 2016. I was really close. I was thinking about it, but I held back.
That's good.
You know?
That's good.
It's like, okay, nice, good for you. Don't do that. That's a crime. Don't.
But no,
Uh,
it's just like if they win like a Premier League and another trophy, oh, I swear it's gonna be bad. I'm just gonna be an asshole for a while just because of
don't.
the personal bias towards this club around the whole world.
Something else I appreciate about Ryan Glinsky. Don't ask me how I know this because I'm not a bettor, but I believe it's called reverse hedging when you bet against the team that you want to win because it's a win-win situation in
Yeah.
that scenario. Either you're right or your team won. So either way, and I feel like Ryan's a little bit that way, picking MSU to win, not picking Arsenal to lose,
I
not be able to finish it out.
I
I
don't
just feel like you're setting up a win-win here.
No, the Michigan State thing. How could you say Michigan could beat Michigan State? They haven't done it in 3 years or so. And
That's
and
true.
I thought
At the Breslin. Yeah, fair.
I thought the whole transfer portal thing. I didn't think the Michigan players understood it. I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
But that
Yep.
was my reasoning. I thought Michigan didn't understand it. I thought Michigan State did. I thought the last time they played would add more fire to Michigan State. But with Arsenal is they just have a history of just bottling stuff. So it's hard.
It is
for me
hard to get
say.
past that mentally,
It's
that mental barrier.
But the thing is they all talk about how they've got to be better here, and they all talk about it, and it's showing, and the other teams
Yeah.
are starting to slip, and like Man City's not as dominant as they were. Like this is probably the
Yeah.
worst Man City squad we've had in quite some time, just because they drop silly points all the time. What Arsenal was doing a couple years ago is what Man City's doing right now. Dropping a 2-goal lead, you drop points. They're losing to teams they shouldn't lose to. They're dropping points here. They're dropping points there. Silly ways, and Arsenal really isn't. I mean, the Man United game, but I mean, those are two of the craziest goals I think you'll see all season. And then Zubmendi obviously gifted one, but no, it's just silly ways that they're giving up goals and dropping points. But it's just a little bit hard for me to say right now here on February 5th that Arsenal can win multiple trophies because I've never seen it. And the only thing I've ever seen is them is win the FA Cup and the Community Shield. So no, it's a little difficult. I wouldn't say I'm setting myself up to be like, wow, my team won, or when they finally lose it, I was right. No, it's just difficult for me to say. But it's a very good team.
Yeah.
It's just can they finally get over that hump? And that's the question that needs to be answered.
Yeah. It's one of the things, when you're tortured like that and you get into postseason play, you just expect at some point it's all going to change. But I do think they control their destiny.
They do.
Quickly before we go to break, reading off the top 5 from this list released by ESPN: Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Man United at 4th in the Premier League, and then Newcastle right there at number 5. Somehow Man U is just able to stumble their way into the top 5.
Where's Aston Villa? What's this list?
So this was the look at the name of Ryan O'Hanian and Bill Connolly from ESPN released their list. So it's Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Man United, Newcastle.
Yeah,
Chelsea.
I get that. I'm saying, what is the
Yep.
list? What's it saying? Like, what's the headline?
ESPN's Premier League rankings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
thought Villa would be up there because they're third now,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So it says Man United good now, Arsenal even better. And with that, we'll go to commercial break. But first, we'll tell you about Barca Academy, proud sponsor of the
Bayern.
National Soccer Network. Sorry, goodness gracious, I can't get this down. FC Bayern Summer Soccer Camps are a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, fostering football excellence across North America. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels. FC Bayern camps deliver elite training inspired by FC Bayern Munich's world-class philosophy. Select your city and start a promising soccer path. And right now, save $30 on registration by using promo code BayernNSN30. Again, that's BayernNSN30, or scan the QR code on your screen. FCBayernYouth.com. Yes, Inside the Game rolls along. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan Glinsky. Man, I miss the MASL calling those games. That was a good time. I'd see that commercial every day, and I'm like, I'll be back one of these days. I will be back. Of course, we did a lot of different broadcasts on that last year. Some English only broadcasts in a game that was in Mexico. That was really fun. But anyways, getting back on topic here. Moving on to our second topic here this first hour. Weston Mckennie is a name that continues to come up a lot on this show. Was recently named Player of the Month for Juventus in the month of January. Mckennie has had a great season so far, but really just a good month of January. 3 goals over the course of 7 matches in the month. And this is a player that really, Ryan, the club has tried to, in no short terms, try to get rid of for 3 straight summers. And he just so happens to now, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would second this, be the best player on the team. And obviously, we've seen the high praise that has come for Weston Mckennie out of Juventus and his skill set and his versatility. And I know we had that ridiculous conversation not long ago about, well, could he be a striker for the U.S. men's national team? Obviously, not his natural position, but I think sometimes we just see the flashes of greatness with how he's able to play forward and create opportunities and generate chances for Juventus. So I think, maybe as just from an American perspective, I think, well, could he be a number 9? Is that something we could maybe try him in? It's obviously too close to the World Cup to think about something like that. But what is your takeaway from what we've seen out of Weston Mckennie? And I know there was a comment recently dropped in one of our videos talking about his importance on the U.S. men's national team. And maybe our priorities should change a little bit. We always want to say that Christian Pulisic is obviously our guy. He is the player that needs to go out and generate and do everything, but maybe Mckennie takes the spot as the most important player on that U.S. men's national team. All in all, just a really good month for Weston.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, look at these numbers. Third on the team in goals in all competitions, 6.
Yeah.
He's up there in terms of assists, 4. He's third. He's tied for third with the most chances created per 90 with just over 1 a game. 83% pass completion, and wins 45% of his duels per 90, FOTMOB rating of 7.14 for the whole season, and that's one of the better ones on the team. Is he the best player on Juventus? I mean, I don't see why not. I don't see why he's not the best player on Juventus. I mean, he's been great all year long, scores in big spots, and a team that has struggled in Serie A, which a team that typically hasn't. At least they dominated in the 2010s and have struggled
Yeah.
in recent years. Is he the best player on the team? I think so. But if we go to the USA discussion of is he more important than Christian Pulisic? No, he's not. I still think Pulisic is still the most important. I know a lot of people say, well, did we started winning some games without him? Yeah, that's true. But if I look at Pulisic, to me he is still the trailblazer of this whole country of making a way for all these young Americans. And we just saw a couple days ago a couple 17, 18-year-olds that will be moving from the MLS to Europe this summer. They already have their contracts in place, and they'll be moving over into Europe. And there's so many Americans that are playing in top flights. There's been 25 that have played. If Alex Freeman plays, there'll be 25 Americans that have played in top flight divisions in the year of 2025 to 2026, that whole season. And Mckennie, I think he's a wonderful player. We gotta have him. I think we just need both. I think we need to move from this discussion of who is more important for this team. Who's more important?
Yeah.
We need them all. We ultimately need them all. And I look at Pulisic, and it's like, if he's out there, that is eyeballs shift to him. Whether that is the media, whether that's the opposing team, or whether that's the USA of how do we get Christian the ball. I mean, look at the most important goals. He scored against Iran, got us into the round of 16. If he scores against the other ones, it's a different story with the game. We look at the Nations League, when that really seemed like the most important win of the generation for that current generation of beating Mexico in the Nations League. Who steps up to take that PK? Pulisic does. When I look at Weston McKennie, I think of a guy that we ultimately need. He's a phenomenal player. Can we score? How do you win things? You find goals in the midfield, and that's what Weston McKennie's doing, and we need him. Him and Tyler Adams together, I think, are really good, and you put Weston McKennie, kind of that guy to piss a little bit of people off, have that little bit of edge, because ultimately I don't think Pulisic is a player that wants to get in the face of other players. Weston can. We kind of talk about what are the Red Wings lacking, and they're lacking that kind of like that toughness, that little bit of grit in the gray areas. Weston McKennie can do that. He wins so many of the duels. He does a lot of that dirty work, and I think they're both really good in their respective ways, and I think we need to change the conversation of not who's the more important, but we actually need both of them. And I think both of those players are really good at their respective roles and positions.
I understand why people get bothered with the media sometimes, and this is probably one of those reasons, because we love pitting one player against another. It's even if they're on the same team. Oftentimes if they're two really good influential players, it's like, well, who matters more in this equation? Who matters more to winning? The only way that we ever make any progress in the 26 World Cup or put this nation in a position to really actually go out and win a couple of knockout games or get as close as humanly possible to the World Cup, maybe without winning it, is we need every single one of these pieces to fit like a puzzle. That's exactly what we need. I don't, that's the part where I think we go a little bit too far with this conversation. Weston McKennie has been amazing in the position that he's in. He's shown flashes of greatness. He's been great on a Juventus team that, as you've talked about, has struggled. Does that make him a superstar in the European game? No, not necessarily, but it's a sign that he is healthy, he is motivated, he's doing the things that he needs to do, and so great. That's another puzzle piece that fits in this equation of the U.S. men's national team. But when we start to get into that, that other side of things, which again, going back to why people don't like the media, because we like narratives and we like to create narratives. And so this narrative that, okay, he's had a good run with Juventus. Now, not only should we talk about, is he the most important player? Like, forget Christian Pulisic, he's off to the side over here, but also could he be our striker? Could we completely change everything because one player has had a really good run? It makes us as American soccer fans, if we start to lean into that side of things, just seem almost anxious in a way, like we're trying to grasp for straws. And because as soon as one good thing or one really good stretch happens, now we have to switch everything around. I mean, I was feeling the same way about Josh Sargent when the season began. I'm like, boom, really good start. He's our guy. Like, he should be our guy. And then he goes out and lays an egg for the men's national team. And now, obviously, we have all this drama between Norwich City and him wanting to go home to Toronto and everything else along those lines. So we need it all to fit together, to your point, like a puzzle. I just think it's interesting when people bring up that kind of question because, is he more influential than anybody else? No, I wouldn't say. I just think if Weston McKennie fills his role the way that he's doing it right now with Juventus, then yeah, we have a pretty damn good chance of doing something coming up in the World Cup. But I just, at the end of the day, I just like talking about what he's doing because I do think Weston McKennie has really implemented himself. And I'd say the best two performing Americans from the club ranks this year, at least in terms of goal scorers, Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic. And right now they're both tearing up Serie A. Obviously, AC Milan having a lot more success as a team, but it's nice to see those two doing what they're doing.
Yeah, we got a comment from YouTube. Schrock Media 2720. He says
Schrocky.
He said
What's up, buddy?
There are different types of leaders. You need a variety on teams. The vocal, by example, relational, and more. I wonder if Pulisic really is a lead by example leader now. Like, I would say before the summer of 2025, I would say yes. But what he did this summer, I don't necessarily know if he's a lead by example guy because ultimately how he started everything in Europe, but the way he was bitching all summer, I don't really know if that's a lead by example guy. I would say Mckennie seems like more of a vocal leader, seems more of like a rah-rah guy. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything because some people think that is a bad thing, but I'm not saying it's bad. But I think they both lead in a variety of ways. I would say they both have different leadership styles. Again, we're not in the locker room. We don't know any of the relationships. We don't know the people personally. But looking from the outside, looking in, that's what it feels like to us, at least to me.
Yeah. Shout out Luke Schrock, by the way. It's my my best friend over there. He works. Yeah, he's down in South Bend. He works at Drive and Shine. Used to be the SID at Bethel University, so he used to do soccer games there. So shout out Schrocky for getting involved in the conversation. Yeah, I think Pulisic. It was by default that Pulisic kind of became the face of American soccer because of his skill set and his rise to prominence and how quickly it kind of became. He was the guy. I mean, I think about when the U.S. obviously couldn't get into the World Cup in 2018. He was just an 18-year-old kid on that team. So he was kind of the face of that new next up generation after the Clint Dempseys and the Landon Donovans of U.S. men's soccer. So because of that, because of his skill set, because of what he can do on the pitch, he was made to be the guy, which means he had to be the leader. But Christian Pulisic, if you know anything about him, which I've never met the guy personally, but at least from what I've seen in documentaries and what I've read and what I've heard from his teammates, he's not a vocal leader. He's not the one. If there was a skirmish on the pitch, I would hope that it would be everybody kind of bunched up, taking care of that situation, and then Pulisic not really involved in it, just kind of off to the side. And I don't take that as Pulisic's not for his guys. I just take that as, we got to protect him, kind of like a quarterback, kind of like the best player on the field. And I think that's more the mentality of this U.S. men's national team is just because he is so valuable with what he can do on the pitch. He doesn't need to be the rah-rah guy. We got rah-rah guys. I think Chris Richards is that. I think Weston McKennie is that. I think Tyler Adams can be that. Pulisic just has to be Pulisic, and he has to play like Pulisic. And if he does, then we have a better chance. So that's all I'll say about that.
Like, I look at Messi, and again, not comparing Pulisic to Messi, but Messi is a lead by example type of leader as well because you see the aura that this guy has with the team sitting in the tunnel, and they're like, let's just wait for Messi real quick to come out and lead us. And again, Messi, like, he's always protected by all of his teammates, and it feels like that's the way for the U.S. I find it hard to wrap my head around based off of this past summer, and that didn't seem very lead by example leadership to me. So that's the only thing where I kind of hesitate to say Pulisic is a lead by example guy, just based off of solely what I saw this summer, because That's not what a leader does. You don't make a documentary about you just bitching to the media and then Tim Weah gets in on it and all that. Like,
Yeah, everyone's being unfair.
but
Yeah, all that
but at the
stuff.
same
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
I think Pulisic needs to embrace that he's the face of USA soccer. He needs to embrace this role because everyone's looking up to you, my man. Like,
Yeah,
young kids are looking up to
yeah.
you. The team's looking up to you. I mean,
It's like
everybody.
it reminds me of like the person who became famous who never wanted to be famous. They just wanted to lead a normal life. They're like, I just want everybody to leave me alone. I just want to show
Yeah,
up and
yeah.
play and go home. But it's like, dude, you can't. Unfortunately, you can't. That's not something you can do, especially when you're from this country. You know that the media is going to latch on to it. So that's just, but that's what it reeks of. It's got a little bit of I feel like, we talked about Justin Bieber the other day, how he never really wanted to
Your
be
guy.
famous in the first place, probably. Yeah, he's great. I like Biebs. I think he's a great performer,
Yeah,
but
you would have Bieber fever. You were blasting baby baby. Oh, when you were like in
no,
high
no,
school.
no. I think his new stuff is no, that old stuff. It is catchy though. I mean, come on, everybody knows the words.
I
It's got a
yeah, I
real T
can't say
Swift
I
vibe to
listened
it.
to Justin Bieber and want to listen to Justin Bieber. But no, I think
But you know
I
the lyrics though.
but I do I know the lyrics? Probably if you give me the chorus, I probably know it because
Okay.
every like elementary school dance or event had it. So I obviously know.
Little homecoming action.
No, not homecoming, not high school homecoming, but every element we had like once a month in elementary school of like some sort of event that got like the school together, like, and that song was always played. So I definitely probably know the chorus. Probably know the words if I play it. But no, it's like Pulisic. I just think needs to embrace it. And Zlatan even told him like, dude,
Yeah.
everyone looks up to you. Like if I were to go to a soccer tournament, a youth soccer tournament, what type? How many jerseys would I? What type of jerseys would I see? I would probably see four different type of jerseys. I would see a Messi jersey, I would see a Ronaldo jersey, I would see Mbappe, and I would see Pulisic. Not saying Pulisic will ever be better than them. I'm not saying that. People like to not think straight sometimes. But that's what I would see. I would see a lot of Pulisic jerseys because he's
Yeah.
American, and I'm at an American youth soccer tournament. And Messi, obviously, because he's the best. Ronaldo, because he's up there. And Mbappe, because he's an up-and-comer. And I Pulisic needs to embrace it. I think, and that's not a knock on him, but that should be a good thing for him because like so many
Yeah.
people look up to you, so many people look up to me being Christian, and I'm laying down the foundation. Ultimately, when I look at Pulisic, I think of a player that is just trying to change the game of soccer for all America. That's how I view it. He's trying to change the. Berhalter's saying when he was the manager, he used to say, "Let's change the way the world views American soccer." That's what he used to say, and I think Pulisic is trying to do that. I think a lot of these players are trying to do that, and ultimately, I think that he needs to embrace that. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I think it really starts with, be the one that leads in the media, be the one that is in
Yeah,
front
don't
of the
be
camera,
bitching
be
all
the
the
one
time.
that's answering questions. Don't, and I know JT and I kind of got into a little tiff on this show once upon a time about the importance of being front and center in the media when you're in that position. I think it's important. It makes my blood boil when I see, um, the quarterback for the Chargers. What's his name? Um,
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert. There you go. When I see Justin Herbert, like ignoring, Laura Rutledge, who's just going out there to get a post game interview and walking away. It's like, listen, dude, like you signed up for this. Okay. Like, don't, I know it's funny when you listen to the whole Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I get it. But I think leading in the media is a very important thing. And I think trying to be the face that way is something that is something that Christian Pulisic is perfectly capable of doing, and I would like to see more of, certainly. We'll take a step aside when we come back. You had sent me this yesterday. One of your friends sent this to you. Missouri State, their soccer roster construction is very unique, and they are one of a kind in that way. And the reason being, no Americans, no one from the United States on that roster. We're going to talk about that when we come back here on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail. Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play, NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate. Call 586-304-4405 and start watching today.
Into our final segment here on hour one of Inside the Game. I'm Nate Wangler. That is Ryan Glinsky. As always, give us a follow. National Soccer Network, wherever you find us on social media. We'll be posting these clips every single day, as well as longer clips, 10 to 15-minute segments. No, like we like to break down the show a little bit into segments, so we're going to have those up on the National Soccer Network YouTube page. As Ryan was talking about, putting together his top World Cup moments of all time. I'm going to be going through a little bit of a list later, seeing what else we can put in there. I know I put the Christian Pulisic goal against Iran in there, which was interesting. We got another comment.
Yeah, it's from
coming in.
your friend here. I am starting a
Oh, boy.
petition to hear the word "tiff" on sports commentary more often, along with Donnybrook. I take that's a little inside joke.
Do you know what a Donnybrook is by chance?
No.
Donnybrook is an old term for a fight.
Oh.
So if you like in hockey, you know, like I saw the Grand Rapids Griffins and I believe it was the Milwaukee Admirals
they got
last
into a
night,
big
little
one.
line brawl. Yeah. So that would be a Donnybrook. That's a big Donnybrook.
Okay.
But also, yeah, tiff, yeah, it's just like a fight or yeah. So
I mean, I
I'm
wouldn't
not a
mind seeing more
linguist,
fights
but
in soccer. I just think as long as no one gets suspended.
I love when people are like we should allow fighting in all the other sports. I'm like, do you realize how difficult it is to fight on skates? Like actually like try to like take someone out on skates. Like I realize that they're on skates all the time. It's almost like walking for these guys. It's a little bit different than being on, on 2 feet. But anyways, let's get into this Missouri State conversation. I know we're getting a little low on time here in hour number 1, but a roster that is completely un-American. Well, I wouldn't say un-American. They are here, they are playing, but no Americans on the roster.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. There are no Americans. The roster, 9 from England, 4 from Spain, 3 from Italy, 2 from Japan and Portugal and Canada, and 1 from Scotland, Norway, the U.S. technically, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And why is there one United States player? Well, one of the players who was born in Jamaica moved here to the United States, but he's not actually from America. He's actually from Jamaica. So make of that of what you wish.
Yeah. So
But
yeah.
no, he was born and raised in Jamaica. So at least looking at his bio, I could be wrong.
Right.
Someone could correct me, but that's at least what it says on the website. But no, there are no NCAA regulations on the amount of Americans or international players that you can have, and I think that's wrong. I think the NCAA has to institute a ruling for every sport to have a X amount of Americans on the roster. That's just the way that it should be. And again, I haven't seen any rule at all when I searched it up this morning. But No, you have to have that. Every league in the world professionally has a regulation on the amount of homegrown talent you're supposed to have on the roster. That's why you'll see a couple professional teams will like randomly like England will like I remember Tottenham randomly signed Joe Hart and everyone's like, "Well, what is this? Like the dude hasn't played." And it's simply
Yeah.
because they could fit the English quota. You have to have a certain amount of English players. And the U.S. doesn't have that when it comes to the NCAA Division One. I think the MLS, I think they have that ruling. Like look at the CFL, Canadian Football League. There's a regulation on the amount of Canadian football players you actually have to have.
Yeah.
The NCAA does not have that at all. And this is not a knock on Missouri State. There's nothing that at all. All I'm getting at here is you need to have a regulation for Division One soccer, Division Two, Division Three, the NAIAs. You have to have a regulation that you have to have.
Yeah.
There's what, like 20, 25 on a roster for a soccer program. You got to have then minimum of 10. You have to have a minimum of 10 American players because ultimately we want to grow the game here. And what's one way that you can grow the game? Having Americans play college soccer, whether you think that's right or wrong in terms of professional pathway, and that's up for you to decide. But some college soccer players have done well in the pro ranks, and you have to have 10 out of the 25 players be on the roster that are American. It can't all be international. So these players can be really good for all I know, but I'm just saying you have to have a regulation on the amount of Americans on a Division One soccer team.
Yeah, well. So speaking of quotas, I'm sure the school doesn't mind seeing international students come and go to their school. I'm sure that looks good for their community. I'm sure they like that. So, there's also that component of it too. We talk about quotas. Everybody has a quota. So I like to imagine that, those schools probably like it and maybe the NCAA likes it. I see your point with all the different professional leagues because you're right. I mean, that is a rule. You have to have a certain amount of homegrown players. You can't just add unlimited players from out of country or whatever the case may be. And I think it's rich to assume that the NCAA would put a system together that's fair because we just know that that's just not what they do. They just kind of, everything's the Wild West nowadays with that NCAA. And,
Not with
we always
Trinidad
talk about
yesterday.
Well,
They
yeah,
denied
but
him. They showed some balls yesterday.
I say, yeah. Well, once in a while they do. They'll surprise you. But I'm gonna disagree with you on this, and here's why. There are examples of programs in schools across the country that very much are the opposite of this. That very much tap into the local pro development or amateur development that really get a lot of at least their key talent from around that area, and then they'll fill it out with international players. But I've seen this before. I think of Northwestern Ohio. Now, mind you, they are NAIA, but I would say about 98% of the players on their team not from the United States, not from around here. And we talk about growing the game in the U.S. The question of, and I saw a couple of people say this when we have these conversations, maybe we don't give non-Americans, Europeans, wherever it may be across the world, maybe we don't give those players or those people influencing our game enough credit. Because with them coming here to play raises the level of play everywhere that you go. If they are very good players, which they are. I mean, obviously they came up in different schools of football
If you're
across
good
the
in Europe,
world.
you ain't coming to America.
To go to an American university and get a degree? What do you mean?
Nate, what the?
You don't think they want to live in the United States?
Nate, if you are a good soccer player in Europe, you do not come to the United States to play soccer. These players are the throwaways. Like, if you are a good European soccer player, you do not come to the United States.
Well,
There's
clearly
no
they're
way.
taking a roster spot away from an American, right? So they have to be okay.
But so you're saying they're probably better than America. Most of these players are all going pro. But we're talking about there has to be a roster limit. There has to be.
No, I understand the want to create opportunities for American players, but if you're not on the same level as that kid from Italy or the kid from Africa or the kid from Europe, then you're not on the same level. Like, I don't.
What I'm arguing is just because we are taking then just the scraps of all of the European players and bringing them over to the United States. that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, they might be scraps over there, but maybe here they're not scraps. I'm just talking about like compared to the options that they have. And it also a lot of this might come down to the part of the country they're in. I mean, it just might be that their pipelines are not very strong in terms of be a real thing. I mean, Washington's a different story. You got a lot of great clubs out there. Florida is obviously a different story. You got different parts of the country. But no, just the way that I see it is that if you don't like it, well, then do something about it. Raise your game. Like, this is going to put pressure on American players to continue to get better. If you're talking about a bias against American players, then I can see where you're coming from with that.
So there's a couple examples that, I've heard from friends that have gone on to play college soccer or whatever. There's a couple examples that have said that their coaches favored the international players. Just because you have an accent doesn't mean you're a better soccer player than an American.
That's fair. I'll give you that.
That doesn't mean anything. And I think that there's a bias within America that you have to have an accent to be a good soccer player. I genuinely think that. And a lot of players have said that they have gotten the unfair treatment from these coaches because of the international players. Some of the international players might not even be good. I've technically been in one environment where that's happened, and I didn't think the international players were that good. If I'm being quite honest with you, and it's not a high level, but there's a lot of international players and I think what it boils down to is a lot of people think just because you're from outside of the country that you're a better player than an American, and there has to be regulations on this because that ultimately continues to help to grow the sport. Is this going to grow the sport because international players are coming over here and taking American spots on roster sheets? No. If they're better, if a European soccer player is or South American, because I know a lot of South Americans are a part of this too, or a player from Asia. Are they ultimately better? If they're better, then sure, have the roster spot because ultimately the coach's job is to put the best product on the field.
Yeah.
But in most cases that I've just heard from people that's not the case, and they're just taking it because they're from international play. But what I'm getting at here is the NCAA it's even if it happens, it's going to be a long process because it's the NCAA and they move super slow. But you have to have regulations on this. I think that there's an MLS regulation on the amount of Americans you can have on a roster, but everywhere around the world has these spots. There are a limit. So, and Canadian clubs too. So everywhere around the world, there is a regulation for domestic and homegrown players. Everywhere around the world. The NCAA is like, nah, we ain't doing none of that. I'm not saying that every single team needs to have 20 Americans on the 28-man roster. No, I'm not saying that at all. But I think you have to have a minimum of 10 American players on a roster because if what you're saying is the international players are so much better than the American players, then wouldn't these American players benefit by having international players on the roster? Wouldn't that help raise their game? But you're not even giving the Americans a shot to improve their game or learn from it because you're just giving it all away to international players and you're not having a roster limit. So you have to have a minimum of 10 players on a 28-man roster. Have to.
I guess we can kind of go back and forth on what the number should be, but I can definitely see where you're coming from, and obviously the individual experiences of the people that you're mentioning means something. I'm not saying that doesn't mean anything. So I can certainly see where you're coming from on that. I just think it's obviously something that we do see the bias one way. Certainly we do see the bias. And just having an accent obviously doesn't make you a better player. It's just, for me, the counter question in my mind would be, well, and if an American is really worth it, I mean, if he's really, what he should be, wouldn't he go the USL route? Wouldn't he try to go the professional route as opposed to playing in college? So, there's that question too, because I feel like the best players from here are in those leagues and maybe not necessarily in the college ranks. Although I know I've said many times before that we need to pay more attention to the NCAA, which I agree. I do think there's a lot of great players there, but just something to
It's
chew
just
on.
like
But
if you're international player, your goal is not to play American collegiate soccer. Your goal is to continue to be in academies over there and go that way. I know we're at 10
Yeah.
o'clock here, but I just
Yeah.
think that we have to give Americans a fair shout at all of this. And
Yeah.
you have to have roster spots, because how does everybody else in the world have regulations except NCAA rosters? And
Yeah.
if you can tell these travel kids, these youth players that, there is shots to, you may not be able to make it in an MLS academy, you may not be able to make it in a USL academy or an MLS Next or whatever, but
Yeah.
you could play at the next level, and you are given, I mean, how many Division 1 programs are there that play soccer? I would say over 100. I don't know how many universities are in the country. I'd say over 200, maybe 300. I don't know. But that's still, if you give a minimum of 10 spots, we'll say 250, you still have that many kids that are going to go play soccer at the next level, minimum. So I think that there needs to be regulations on this. And again, if these international kids are that good, they ain't coming here to play soccer. Like if I'm looking at it, this international player, if he's so much better than an American soccer player, he ain't coming here to go play soccer in a Division 1 program. He's going to try it over there.
Yeah. All I'll say is I do think the influence of the football/soccer world outside of our continental borders has raised the level of our game here in the U.S. And we've seen it with managers, or coaches that we've talked to. We've seen it with players. I mean, a lot of them have accents, and it's not just the players themselves. A lot of them are coaches. And so, I agree. But I do think giving a fair shake to American players is important, certainly. So I can certainly see where you're coming from on that. But right when we come back, we'll get into our all sports content. First, I want to tell you about Barca Academy, though, proud sponsor of the national, or Bayern. Is it Bayern this time or Barca?
Barca.
Barca Academy
It's the same thing.
is a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network. And hey, chill out a little bit, all right? Official academy of FC Barcelona in the United States, designed for boys and girls ages 6 to 18. Barca Academy camps follow and replicate the FC Barcelona game model and the same philosophy used by Barca's professional coaching staff. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code FCB30. Scan the QR code on your screen, fcbarcelona.us/camps.
In Barca camp, I sing my song grown on and off of the field. Don't miss the time to register.
Sign up now for Barca camp.
In Barca camp, I sing my song grown on and off of the field. Don't miss the time to register.
Sign up now for Barca camp.
And we're back live on the National Soccer Network, Inside the Game, episode 223. Ryan said we got another comment on the way, or we got another
he says,
comment during
talking with
commercial
guys
break.
that came to Bethel from overseas, some don't know the different levels of college sports until they are on American soil. Some eventually transfer up to Division One. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really know the difference if I was from
Yeah,
overseas either. I mean, there's so
yeah,
many different levels. There's community college. You got
yeah,
NAIA. You got D3, D2, D1.
and
Probably
a lot
another
of them
random division
do.
I don't know about. So
A lot of them do want to live in the United States too. I mean, that's an important component to think of. You know, and talking to some of the internationals around that program, it's like, yeah, well, we want to be here. So, you know, that's another big part of it too. If you go over as an American recruiter and you're like, hey, you got a pocket full of cash, you want to come to the United States and live and go to school and do all that other stuff, like, absolutely. I mean, I would jump at that personally every time. But we appreciate your tutelage, Shrocky. You like that word? Should I use that one a little bit more? You know,
tutelage.
tutelage. Yeah, you like being a customer. I appreciate your tutelage coming back and being a part of this. But let's get into our all sports content. Framber Valdez is now a Detroit Tiger. The Tigers signing Valdez just yesterday. That was breaking news that they had gotten the big hard throwing lefty. I got an immediate text from my social media connoisseur, the kid who is always on top of everything coming on down the pipeline. That is the one and only Ryan Glinsky, asking me if it was a good move for the Tigers. And yeah, I would say that's a pretty dang good signing for Detroit. Could this be a future Scooble replacement? Rather, that's the biggest point of talking about this here today, because when he was brought in and when he was signed, that was my initial reaction. You know, the Tigers are going after and targeting another top end left-handed talent that could be the star of this rotation, to where in the future, if they need to deal Scooble, if they need to do something else in terms of moving assets around, it seems like they have all the cards now that they have someone like Valdez. And I also mentioned that, you know, Jackson Jobe is coming back. Now you have Reese Olson. So absolutely could be a future Scooble replacement, but a career 3.36 ERA, over 1,000 strikeouts since 2018. Hard throwing lefty. Ryan. I don't know, personally, for me, I love absolutely everything about this.
Yeah, so do I. Your buddy says, I would love nothing more than to hear tutelage more often. So yes, I do think people would like to hear
All right,
that.
I'm getting a list.
When I saw 3 years, 115 million, I ultimately thought it was Scooble, because it just popped up on a notification on my phone. I have ESPN notifications on all the time, and I saw it and I was like, wow, we re-signed Scooble. Wow, that's crazy. And I looked at it, I was like, that's not his name. But no, I that's the question of, is he the replacement for Scooble? I actually posted a video on this yesterday. I think there was a couple comments. Yeah, there was a couple of comments from this. Someone says, who the hell is Framber Yeldes? And someone says, have you ever watched baseball? That's coming from a Jordan Marshall fan. He says, they aren't going to get rid of Scooble. I would beg to differ. Then this one coming from Freezer Burn. That sounds awful. He says, does this signing really mean Scooble is going? My understanding is that they're using this signing to push all in with the last year of Scooble, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. To me, to me, that's what I've said all year. All offseason is try, because I don't think ultimately Scooble is going to re-sign anyway. And if we're not going to trade him, let's go all in to win now. And maybe we have to spend a little bit more than we normally have to. And if that's the case, we ain't going to spend for another couple of years anyway, because most of the guys aren't on contracts yet that we think are going to be stars, that being McGonigal, Briseño, and Clark. I was thinking the blonde hair. I couldn't think of his name. But if that's the case, because I ultimately think that if we aren't going to keep Scooble and we ain't going to trade him, let's just go all in right now. And ultimately, the Dodgers are way better than us anyway. But if we put but I will say, I like our odds a little bit more with having possibly in that series 2 Scooble starts and possibly 2 Valdez starts. Like that just feels a lot better to me. And is this the Scooble replacement? I don't know. We'll have to find out later today. Which there'll be more Scooble talk later on in the show. We got a comparison for who to better. But no, I ultimately think though that Nate that this is a move because I ultimately think Scooble will be here in the season, and depending on how they look at the trade deadline, I think we'll see Scooble all season. If we're in a winning spot, we'll see Scooble all year, and then he'll eventually go. But to me, they have locked down this rotation. Like I texted you of if we're looking at it today, Scooble, Valdez, Jack Flaherty, and then you kind of have a mixture of a couple of guys that you could put in there. Reese Olson, Casey Mize, and who's the young guy? Melton.
Jackson Jobe. Sorry.
Joe, I
Melton.
don't expect
Troy
Joe
Melton.
I don't expect Joe to play a lot this year. So I kind of keep Joe out of the equation. But Melton, he showed up in some big spots in the postseason.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at that, I'm like, you know what? That's a really good rotation, and especially with a team that doesn't have a ton of bat power. What's one way to kind of trump that? Have good pitching, and ultimately you could put one of those three that I named of Mize, Olson, and Melton in the pen if you really want, and have come out of the pen. And one of the players that we talked about being a starter for 4 innings every 5 days is Montero, and you don't even have to start Montero. You can bring him in for an inning or two if you want late in the game. So it just feels like I wouldn't say it's all in yet, because if to say they're all in, I think they need another bat. Ultimately, I think to say that they're all in is another bat, whether that's trade or free agency. But I would say that this pitching rotation is pretty solidified.
Yeah, and it's in some ways it sets up a win-win for the Tigers organization too, because you think about it, if they're so good at the trade deadline, well then okay, you get them for a playoff run. Now you have them in a position to where you can make a run towards a World Series that puts you in the perfect spot with the pitching that we already have to be able to do that. This game is so much about pitching. I've heard this line once upon a time. It may as well just be called pitching. Because that's what wins you games, is having good pitching. And so for the Tigers, there's that reality. There's also the other reality, which I don't see happening, and I'm happy that I can report that because, as a Tigers fan, you just really never know. But I can report that, and I'm confident saying this, that I don't think they're going to be in a position to where they're going to have to sell at the deadline. I really don't. But even if they are, you have the best potential possible piece to sell in Major League Baseball right now. And so the haul that you could get with just one player like Tarek Skubal is just, it's immense. So, it would be the same thing if Pittsburgh were to trade Paul Skeens. I hope they never do that because that'd be the worst decision ever.
Well,
but that is just
have to. The team sucks.
I get it, but he's the greatest pitcher of my generation. I've never seen. Yeah. Anyways, so we'll get into that on who to betta. But it puts the organization in a win-win situation. I just don't know how this is going to land with Skubal's camp. Seeing how willing the Tigers are to break the pocketbooks open to go out and get another hard-throwing lefty for the amount of money that they gave him, but yet it's taken them so long to actually put pen to paper and bring Skubal back, which I do think in some ways he wants to be in Detroit. So we'll see how that impacts negotiations, because I do find it interesting that it happened so quickly. I mean, literally nearly almost at the same exact time, they're making that signing and they're having these conversations. It's just weird. The timing of it is all odd. So I think we're going to have some more, obviously we're going to have some more breaking news here very shortly, but it'd be interesting to see how all of that is handled. But if you still get Skubal for one more year and you have Valdez, I think the pitching is set. I think at this point, it's just a matter of, can they make one big splash in terms of the offense? Can they get one more bat in there that just really kind of turns heads? Because at the end of the season, nobody was turning heads, especially in the postseason. Nobody was turning heads. Maybe Kerry Carpenter from time to time, but outside of that, it was the Sahara Desert. So not to say that they won't be 1 year better. A lot of those guys will be 1 year better, but I think adding one more true offensive weapon to the mix, and Valdez, and having Skubal for one more year, this could get fun this season.
I would say when I'm looking at the offensive side of things, as much as it pains me to say this, but McKinstry can't be an everyday player. Like he can't.
No, he's not. Yeah, he's not.
I get it. He had a great first half, all-star and everything.
Right.
But
Yep.
ever since then, he sucked. And like I don't know who the third baseman could be, because I mean it just kind of seems like it's a cycle with, you have Veerling, you have McKinstry. Didn't Javi play there for a second, or am I losing it there? But it just felt like it's just a endless cycle.
Like Javi was all over the place at some point. Yeah.
But does McGonigal play third? I don't know, but I also don't really want to trust a young player like that in a year where we go all in, just because I don't want to put all my blind faith in a guy that hasn't featured in the majors yet. That's just my own personal opinion. But I feel, again, I haven't really looked at who's on the market or they try a trade, but it just feels like we need another bat. Oh, Colt Keith, that's who I was thinking of. He's played third base, I think. That's who I was thinking of. But can we? Because can Torkelson step up? I really hope. I mean, Riley Green gets a ton of hate because he either hits home runs or he strikes out. Then you look at Carpenter. He's got good power, but I just think we need another everyday bat. And McKinstry starting at third base every day is not it. So I think if they add one other bat that's like a high power bat, I think we then can say we're going all in. But for right now, I find it hard to wrap my head around that we're all in.
Yeah. But, I mean, maybe signs of good things. The fact that the Tigers were willing to just make that big signing. If they're willing to sign a pitcher for a dollar amount like that, maybe they can go find another productive bat or someone who can put the Tigers over the top. But I still think we're going to have fun this year. And we'll obviously continue to cover what's going on. We're going to win the last one ever. We'll go to the Tigers.
Baseball
but
dies
coming up
2026.
Over. Coming up next on Inside the Game, Jeremy Fears has been back to his old antics. We'll talk about that a little bit. But first, Man City Soccer Camps, proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, bringing world-class training inspired by Man City's global football philosophy to players across the United States. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels, these camps focus on technical development, decision-making, and playing the game the City way. Find a camp near you, usacamps.mancity.com. Live on Inside the Game here on the National Soccer Network, wherever you find us across social media land and wherever you're viewing us here today on episode 223, the penultimate episode of this week. How about that word, Schrock? You like that one? Penultimate?
I'll let
Dude,
you know
I'm full
a
of
little
them
bit.
here today. But apparently he dropped another comment. We're going to get into who to bet, actually. I know I talked about Jeremy Fears before I went to commercial break, but we're already on the topic of Scooble and Skeens, so may as well get into it. What did Schrocky have to say in the comment section?
Paul Skeens would leave after his contract is up anyway. Dare I say, the Cleveland Browns of the MLB. That's what I'm saying. Like, it might.
Oh
like,
yeah,
if
yeah,
I'm Paul
that's true.
Skeens and after my contract and the team still looks like that, dude,
The Dodgers,
yeah, I would.
the Dodgers, yeah, they'll get him.
Well, most
Yeah.
likely, or the Yankees, one of the two, or the Mets. But yeah,
or the Padres.
again,
Yeah.
every Thursday we do Who Da Better. We're taking two players, trying to keep same position, same era, and again, this is not Ronaldo, Messi. This is not MJ, LeBron. This is different. We're not talking about the same boring old stuff that you hear all over the place. Last week we compared Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. This week we're comparing Scooble and Paul Skeens for Who Da Better. But simple, here are the numbers, and I can only do 2 years because Skeen's only been here for 2 years. But Who Da Better? Tarek Skubal, 2 Cy Youngs, 2025, 13-6 record, 2.21 ERA, 8.91 WHIP, 241 strikeouts, 1 complete game in 2024, 18-4 record, 2.39 ERA, 0.922 WHIP, 228 strikeouts, and had a beer with my buddy at the Tin Roof after they clinched the playoffs. Just had to make
Let's
sure that got
go.
put in there.
Let's go.
Your buddy's
Oh,
asking, Nate, if you have a
jeez.
thesaurus by your monitor. What's your response to that?
A thesaurus? No, I got them all up here, man. They're all built up throughout the years. I read books sometimes.
Sometimes,
to time.
he says.
Sometimes I can
Paul
read what's on the
Skeens.
screen, so that's good.
1 Cy Young, 1 rookie.
You're ridiculous.
1 Rookie of the Year, a 10-10 record, 1.97 ERA, 0.948 WHIP, 216 Ks, 2024, 11-3 record, 1.96 ERA, 0.947 WHIP, 170 strikeouts, and has a hotter girlfriend.
You are ridiculous.
I'm just saying
man.
the facts.
Okay.
He's got a hotter girlfriend.
That's funny. Okay, so at this moment, just because he's further on down the line, he has more Cy Youngs, obviously with 2 of them now, which puts him in a completely different category of pitchers in baseball history. He is a lefty, so I think that makes a big difference in the baseball world. You can never have enough lefties, especially if they're good. Teams love stacking lefties because they're just unorthodox and it's tough to hit off of them. I think he has the nastiest slide piece in baseball. I think it is the best pitch in baseball, to be honest with you. He has a great changeup too. I'm going to go with, at this very moment, I'm going to go with Tarek Skubal. But let me make something very clear. Paul Skeens will be, and I'm confident in saying this unless he has some sort of blowout injury, will be the greatest pitcher of our generation. It is, what he does is just on a different level. Obviously with only getting a Cy Young in his second year in the league, career 197 ERA. Just the stuff that he has, his swagger and the way that he goes about, and he's very cold. Like I said yesterday about Michigan basketball, but he reminds me of that. He's cold, he's calculated, he's intense. He's just a killer. Paul Skeens is he's just a killer. So I think in terms of if I were to say the 2 greatest baseball players that I have seen and will probably ever
Brandon
see,
Inge.
it's he's he's number 3 on the list, so he's a close third behind these 2. But I used to think it might be Trout and Bryce Harper. No, it's Shohei Ohtani and it's Paul Skeens. Shohei's bat and Paul Skeens' arm. It's nothing compares. So right now in this moment, I'll go with it. You give me Game 7. I'm choosing one of these guys to be on the mound, probably Tarek Skubal. But in terms of what the future holds, Paul Skeens is the chosen one, in my humble opinion.
Well, in Game 7 of the World Series, Skubal will tap out in the 6th inning. So, set that in
6 innings is not a bad outing, Ryan Glinsky.
But win or go home situation, you put that motherfucker back out there. You continue going. Anyway, I'm looking at this. Who the better right now? Skeens. Give me Paul Skeens. And it's not because he's got a hot girlfriend, but, I mean, she is hot. But Skeens, if I'm looking at Skeens, I'm looking at what he's doing, and I threw the records out there. I know that's an overrated stat when it comes to pitchers. I personally believe that, and I think you do too, that I think it's an overrated stat. But if I searched up, if you were to just give
Yeah.
Skeens average run support, if the Pirates gave Skeens average run support, his record would be 40-3 if he was just given average run support. Like, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, that's
And,
mind-boggling. Yeah.
I just look at Skeens, I look at Scooble's work, and Scooble, I know what I've seen in 2 Game 5s of the
Yeah.
what is that? The 2 Game 5s of the divisional series, and giving
Yeah.
up a grand slam, and then to me this still holds a lot in terms of, and it doesn't sit well with a lot of Detroit fans, of him tapping out and all that fun stuff. That doesn't sit well with a lot of Detroit fans because they thought that he should have gone an extra inning, especially in the playoffs. And we can argue again if we want about 6 innings, 1 run's good outing. It's absolutely a good outing, but in the playoffs you expect a little bit more, especially with the amount of money that you want. But I look at Skeens, and he's so young, and to do this at a young age, I think has to be noteworthy. Like, this kid is so dominant at this young of an age, and he's on such a bad team where I feel like he doesn't get a ton of recognition. As if he was doing this on the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Mets, oh my Lord, could you imagine the media just drooling at their mouth? But this kid's so dominant, under a 2-point ERA at his career. The only thing that worries me about Skeens is he hasn't had that injury yet. He has not had Tommy John. He hasn't had anything like
Yeah.
Scooble has. Scooble has had that before. And that's the only thing that, worry about me, if to say he could become the best pitcher of our generation. He definitely has the capability of doing that. He definitely has the potential of doing that. But that still worries a little bit with me with pitchers. And then obviously we can throw the righty and the lefty conversation in there as well. But 100%, I would go with Skeens as of right now. And this isn't to say Scooble's a bad pitcher, because I think he's an unbelievable pitcher still. But if I were to have one right now, I'm still racking with Skeens. And your buddy says, Skeens, if he leaves Pittsburgh, gets a way better record and rises above Scooble, if you don't have to rely on power pitching and strikeouts, you give him room to succeed more.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, he's the most talented pitching prospect I've ever seen in my life, and so I think you're right. I mean, I think if you put him in a healthy situation, Kenta Maeda. All right, yeah, we thought he was going to be a really good addition. Some of those additions that we had last year just did not really do much.
We had the wrong
between
jab.
Maeda, yeah, and Alex Cobb, obviously only been playing 6 games for us on the West Michigan Whitecaps, making $15 million. He was our
do play-by-play for us. He's always out.
Well, that's true. Yeah, he's always out. Yep, he would go 2 innings, then dip out, then yeah.
So you never got a chance to do play-by-play for him.
Not for Alex Cobb, but there was another. Man, I'm trying to think of the rehabbers that we had last year. There was someone else that I had. Dylan Smith. Remember Dylan Smith? All right, pitched for the Tigers last year. Yeah, he was
a very basic name. So.
He was one of our rehabbers. No, but like I said, at this very moment, I'll probably take Tarek. But no, that's a really good observation from you. And that's something that we talk about in baseball spaces all the time. That was the biggest complaint about bringing in someone like Jackson Jobe in the place that we drafted him, because Jackson Jobe only had maybe close to 100 innings pitched in his life going into that draft. And then we picked Jackson Jobe, and everyone kind of looks around and goes, well, like the big injury is coming. Like it's on down the line. And that's just where baseball is right now, with how hard these guys throw, how much stress there is on the elbow, like leading into the professional ranks. Like they've already thrown X amount of pitches. And that's the thing, is like when you look at college ball, when we get into this, 6 innings, 100 pitches, that's not enough for a starter. In college ball, sure, because you want your horse out there, to go, you'll put him out there 120, 130, 140, which I still think is utterly ridiculous. You should not be throwing that many pitches. That's just dangerous at that point. So that's why I always give pushback with that, especially when you've built the bullpen that you've built. But I know that obviously you and I kind of disagree on that point. Yeah. But anyways, all that to be said, that is something that very realistically, I hope it's not on the horizon for Paul Skeens, but that's just how the game goes sometimes, especially with pitching. You just feel like that injury is just kind of waiting to happen.
Yeah,
it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yeah, and that's something that if I were a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, I'd be a little worrisome of, just because of, every pitcher goes through it at some point. And for Jackson Jobe,
Right.
I mean, I thought a very questionable draft pick at the time, but a lot of things Al Avila did at the time were very questionable. That's just the nature of what he did. Which I don't know if you saw the other day, but Austin Meadows actually did Parker's on the team. So Austin Meadows, the one that had all the mental, he actually did a video the other day. I actually watched it.
Really?
Said he's actually in a very good place right now. So shout out to you, Austin Meadows.
Awesome. Yeah,
the
that's
guy
good
that
news.
was supposed to say the rebuild that made the Tigers rebuild over. But shout out to him for being in a good place again. And your brother's not bad. But it's just, all I would say is in terms of Skeens is just, I hope, because you never want to see a career derailed, like look at Derrick Rose, for example, of a guy that had so much high potential and then just got hurt and never was the same again. And you don't want to see that with a guy that could be so generational that Paul Skeens could become. I mean, he's definitely on that path, but just hasn't had it yet, and that worries me a little bit.
I'm thinking maybe tomorrow we get into the biggest what ifs in sports history, because you just got my mind going. And in the basketball conversation, I don't think there's anybody that comes close to Derrick Rose in that conversation. If D Rose stayed healthy, I don't think we'd be talking about Steph as the greatest point guard of all time. I think we'd be talking about D Rose as the greatest guard of all time. And I think he could potentially be in the GOAT conversation, because Chicago was actually building something during those years. They just obviously they couldn't get past LeBron, much like anybody else couldn't get past LeBron. But D Rose was the truth, the absolute truth.
I'd agree. He just didn't take his SAT. But that's a different discussion.
But exactly.
But no, so tomorrow we got jam packed. We got top 5 Super Bowl snacks because of the Super Bowl. Gotta talk about the Super Bowl, obviously, and if the ginger gets it done, then we absolutely do biggest what ifs, unless something.
Yeah.
Obviously, Scooble then too, because we'll know the hearing, and the results of that.
Yeah.
So jam packed for tomorrow, but break and then the wonderful legend that is Jeremy Fears that continues to grow.
I know Ryan's got a rant coming up. He's got one cooking up in the oven right now. So got a video comp. He's got everything. It's Draymond Green 2.0 at Michigan State. Jeremy Fears. Tom Izzo says he has to grow up a little bit. We'll take a look at that on the other end here on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail. Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play, NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate. Call 586-304-4405 and start watching today.
Welcome back, episode 223, and Jeremy Fears back at it again for MSU. Couldn't close out the game last night against Minnesota. It was Stuart Corman's season in Minnesota. They call this, Ryan, in sports, the hangover effect. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Generally, it's a bad thing. You win a big game. You're not paying attention. You kind of let loose a little bit. You lose the next one. It almost kind of reminded me of, That's what I was scared of when Michigan went to the national championship game in football, was the hangover effect too much. Was Washington going to catch us off guard? That happens. Or it could be the other way. You have a massive, disappointing loss against a Michigan team on your home court. Obviously we have the war of words between Izzo and Dusty May and the media and everything else going on.
Yesterday.
And then you choke against Minnesota. And not only that, you have what Ryan's about to show you, some dirty plays going on, some non-basketball plays. And this is something that Dusty May talked about. Is there a culture issue inside of Michigan State right now? But I think there might be.
So I would say that, again, I think it was a mixture of the hangover effect of the Michigan game and also the typical early February-ish woes for Tom Izzo. He seems to always suck in early February. So they're probably going to suck this next week and the week after, and then they turn it around all the time. It's a tale as old as time. But also this just isn't basketball. Like, so here's a compilation of all of Jeremy Fears' dirty plays. We see an elbow, there's a trip, and you'll see another trip, and then this was the only technical foul where he has his inner Draymond Green, and then there's another trip, and then it'll just loop throughout the whole time. But no, it's just like Izzo said this. Izzo said this in his press conference yesterday. He goes, well, when someone comes out publicly and states something like this, this is kind of what happens, and Jeremy's got to grow up. So he takes a shot at Dusty May because that's ultimately who put the spotlight on this whole situation. Because let's not act and let's not be surprised like that Jeremy hasn't done this all year. He 100% has been doing it all year. But Dusty May says, yeah, there's a lot of film on it. And especially when you're put on a game that had 2.76 billion views, that being Michigan State, eventually people in the social media realm are going to start seeing this and putting it out there. And it's just like, this isn't even basketball. And Fears is a good player. He's a very good basketball player. But at the same time, this guy is worried about all the extracurriculars. He's worried about how to get in someone's head, how to mess up someone's game. And there's no issue with that. There's no issue. But at some point, you got to play basketball. At some point, you got to play the game. And I think yesterday, he just decided to, let's do all the antics, and I'm so pissed off that Michigan beat us. And I think you're right about the fact that Michigan State was so amped up, so focused on this game, or on the Michigan game, rather, that they just kind of forgot about actually playing basketball, forgot how to rebound the ball, forgot how to defend out in transition, forgot how to shoot, forgot how to defend the post. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a hangover.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll last. I mean, I think they'll be back in good standing. They'll probably get back in the win column here soon. But the way that the game is played, we use the Draymond Green example. I still think he has a little more Grayson Allen in him right now than Draymond Green. Not talking about a skill set perspective, but just watching the way that his antics and what he does. That's a total Grayson Allen move right there. Guys running by, just trip him on the way past. And be like, that's total Grayson Allen. But the way that a player like Draymond Green plays the game, and I've always said this, and obviously he's an MSU product and he was under Izzo and he respects Izzo. And there's a long-standing relationship there, but Draymond Green never really changed the way that he played from college into the NBA. And it's because the mentality side of the game is so important. And if you can win that battle, if you can use the English language to give yourself an edge, then you do it. If you can get a little chippy here or a little chippy there and get into people's heads, then you do it, because you understand that if that's the role that you play and you're good at it, well, then be the enforcer. And so I love the mentality. I love the gutsy going up for rebounds and getting tangled up, and you need that emotional leader on the court. However, is Jeremy Fears on that level yet? No, I don't think. I think he's a great basketball player, but there comes a time where that mentality switches over into immaturity and ignorance and all those other things, and seems childish. Like, those are childish things that he's doing. Tripping someone on the way by, trying to kick someone in the what when they bumped him a little bit too hard. Like, that's more Dylan Brooks-esque. which the way Dylan Brooks does it is just annoying because I don't think he's effective. He's a good basketball player, sure, but what he does distracts from what they're doing. And I think a lot of people are starting to kind of clue into that. What Jeremy Fears is doing is not giving his team an edge by standing up for his guys or getting in somebody's chest or maybe talking a little bit louder or being more. That's not what he's doing. He's not doing leader things. He's doing childish things.
Yeah.
Trying to kick a guy where the sun doesn't shine, just tripping dudes on their way past. So if Izzo doesn't respond to this by being like, hey, listen, either you're not playing in the next game or I'm definitely not starting you in the next game, there has to be some sort of precedent set here by Izzo in order to be like, hey, man, I understand playing with that mentality. I've had players that have come through this program that play the way that I think you want to play, but this isn't how it's done. And frankly, it's just a bad look for the program. I mean, it really shows that if you look at that Minnesota game, if you don't think the Michigan game means anything or whatever, it just happened, we're on to the next one. No, like it's very apparent that game had an effect on this MSU program. And I wouldn't say it's a cultural issue. I think Jeremy Fears is just, he has the problem right now. I wouldn't say it's the rest of the team, but yeah, you can tell that is a game that you never know. I mean, it could have a very negative impact moving forward and maybe they fall off the cliff. I don't see that happening just because, again, I think Tom Izzo finds a way to win with teams, whoever's on the floor. But it is, I think it had a little bit more of an impact than maybe what Sparty fans are willing to admit that it did.
Yeah, them saying willing to admit, that's a good way to put it. Because I don't think they want to admit that game meant so much. But no, and Izzo mentioned it. He's like, I might have to bench you. Like he said it in the post game. He's like, I might have to bench you. And again, and the funny part is about the post game press conferences is he mentions like, well, when you come out publicly and say it, people are going to start to attack it. Well, Tom, you tell your Big Ten Player of the Year candidate to knock it off and start acting like an adult for a change and not playing all these petty games. Like,
right.
And the guy's just not playing the game of basketball. Like, Fears is good. He's a good player, but it just felt like yesterday that, watching that game, which Minnesota almost choked away. There's a reason why they've won 10 games. But it just felt like, well, first off, that technical foul that he had wasn't even going to be called until the Minnesota coach comes over and says something. But you got to tell Fears, like, dude, refocus. We get it.
Yeah.
You lost to Michigan. You're upset. You know what? It's not like football where you play them one time and that's it. You get another crack at them. You might have another 2 cracks at them, depending if they play in the Big Ten tournament. But you have another shot at them on their floor. Refocus, my man.
Yeah.
We are trying to win a Big Ten championship. And right now they have 3 losses. Yeah, because they lost to Nebraska, Michigan, and now Minnesota. That's a bad loss.
Yeah.
That's a bad loss if you're Michigan State. And it just felt like all the sidebars. And I'll tell you what, you got Keaton Wagler coming in on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day this weekend. Illinois is a good team, and Wagler he's gonna oh, sorry, I saw Lakers trade. Nothing to report there. Luke Kennard goes to the Lakers. Shocker, who cares?
Ooh, nice.
But I'll tell you what, Keaton Wagler's a dog. He put 46 on Braden Smith. And Braden Smith's better than you, so what do you think he's gonna do against you? And that whole Illinois team is just giant. So like, even if Fears tries to trip him or punch him or whatever, they're gonna get in Fears' face, and it ain't gonna end well. So focus on basketball, regroup, and focus up, and you'll be good. Because he's a good player and it's a good team.
Yeah. And for Tom Izzo, and one of your best players is one of your biggest cancers, that's not a good sign. And so, maybe it's just time for Izzo to be like, hey man, time to sit down and think about this a little bit, time to maybe take some time away. That's where this focus has to be for MSU. Because they looked flat, they looked uninspired, and losses like that against Michigan, again, they can have 2 different types of effects, right? They can either spur you forward and rally you as a team, or you can start to kind of fall apart at the seams. And so I think they're at a crossroads. Michigan State right now, basketball is at a crossroads. But let's take one last final break. When we come back, we're going to get into some comments from David Montgomery, who was interviewed the other day, talked about how it's good to have one guy But in the NFL now, especially with the longevity of running backs, it is nice to have two guys to be able to support your running game. More on that coming up next here on Inside the Game. Welcome back in on Inside the Game, episode 223, final segment here before we get to question of the day. Ryan, I know we only got one more game left here in the NFL season. Super Bowl coming up. We're going to talk about our top 5 snacks tomorrow. But as we get into the offseason, continue to have these conversations about how do the Lions get back into the mix? How do they get back into the fight in the NFC North? And obviously that division has only gotten better throughout the years and more competitive. So what matters the most? And David Montgomery was interviewed yesterday. We have a clip of what he had to say to the media.
I think teams in the NFL are starting to realize how important it is to have two guys and two really great guys. And the really good teams have the rarity of having two really good guys. And, you know, Jameer is one of, if not the best running backs in the league. And I believe, you know, I'm a damn good back myself. And every chance I get to try to showcase myself, I will. And I just think having us both together and us both being as selfless as we are, I think is really important. But, you know, it's something special to be a part of.
Yeah, and the part of this that I see and I understand, and it's what I said earlier, and, you know, I don't know if he necessarily would illustrate it the same way. I think having two good, productive running backs is good simply because you can split the reps. But the longevity of running backs and the potential for injury, if there's one position group in the National Football League where the careers just kind of fall off a cliff, it's running backs. You know, you'll get a handful of good years, and then after that, I mean, it's really just kind of really off the edge of a cliff. I mean, it reminds you of Zeke Elliott. I mean, when Dallas was like, well, we got to continue to pay him this exorbitant amount of money, just kind of got derailed. The tires just kind of fell off at the very end because, again, the usage rate at the running back position, while it is going down in the NFL, if you only have one reliable running back that you can hand the football off to and he takes the lion's share of reps, I mean, if he gets hurt, where do you go from there? Because you can't just not run the football, right? That's not how that works if you want to win high leverage football games. And again, what made the Lions when they almost made the run of the Super Bowl and in those years? Dominant offensive line, a team that in no, you know, it will punch you in the mouth, is going to go forward, is going to play vertical, and is going to get behind their big offensive line and is going to make things happen. They're going to dominate the run game, and they're going to put the pressure on you and their opponents by saying, hey, we're going to hold on to this football the majority of the time because we have two dudes that are reliable in this run game that we can hand the football off to. And then you have to be almost perfect on the offensive side because we're not going to give it back to you. We're going to dominate time of possession. And so in terms of the identity that we got used to seeing from this Lions team, I think a two-back set is what it needs to be. I think having someone like a Montgomery to play off of Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, we all know as Lions fans, like Jahmyr Gibbs is our guy. He is going to get the majority of the carries when it comes to that running game. But to have someone like David Montgomery for short yardage situations, or maybe Jahmyr Gibbs takes a series off or whatever it is, the more we can get out of these two, it's going to extend the amount of time and the productivity for someone like Jahmyr Gibbs. But it's also just going to provide more options for this offense to where, hey, if we can control things on the ground, we already know what we have in Jared Goff. And then that opens up options in play action, that opens up things down the field. So now Goff can get back to just being Goff and surgically picking apart teams, but not having to be the guy to have to get it done. Which, for all those years that I watched Lions football growing up to where they sucked, it's because they couldn't run the football. That is just something that was just a given. So I like the idea of a two-back system. I really do.
I think I got a little different approach about the two-back system. We thought, let's go 5-6 years ago. What did we all think? Running backs were just dead, right? We thought that it was just quarterbacks. Let's air it out type thing, right? Now there's a quarterback issue in the NFL. That's 100% true. So how do you move the football without throwing the football, running the football? And now all of a sudden the last
it's like we're going back. It's like we're reversing.
Yeah, and we see the last couple of years, a lot of teams rely a little bit more heavily on the run because the quarterbacks in college, we look at a guy like a Trinidad Chambliss, we look at a guy like Carson Beck, even Mendoza a little bit. It's a lot of RPOs. It's a lot of read and react. And in the NFL, they want quarterbacks to they'll mix in a couple RPOs, 100%. But they want you to read defenses and figure it out. They're designing plays where you can just read the defense, see what coverage they're in, adjust as you want, because that's what they ultimately want you to do. But we get into college, what's an easy way to develop? What's the easy way to get yards in college football? RPOs. Read. All you got to do is read one defender, pull it, or give it to the running back or throw it. That's what they want you to do. And that's kind of what these quarterbacks are doing. So that's why you see some quarterbacks struggle tremendously in the first year or two at the NFL level. So what are they going to have to do? Let's rely on the ground game a little bit more. Let's put a little bit more investment in running backs. You're right though that the career longevity of a running back is a little bit shorter than most NFL players just because of the beating that they have. So that's why you see some running backs get drafted in the 6th round, 5th round that make some impacts in the NFL. But with the Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery situation, look, this year they had no offensive line. So Montgomery isn't really – you can't really use Montgomery if you don't have an offensive line. You can't run in between the tackles because you can't move him. He's a bruiser back, so you have to have an offensive line. Jahmyr Gibbs, great in space. You can throw him the football. You can get him out wide. He can make guys miss. So that's why he worked so much, and that's why he got the football way more than Montgomery. But if you have a normal Lions offensive line the last couple of years, you can use Montgomery. But Montgomery's a little bit more limited, but that I think a two-back system is perfect wherever you go, like college or the NFL, regardless of who it is. But the Lions did it really well because they had a really good offensive line. But I ultimately think that NFL teams are looking at two running back systems because their quarterbacks aren't as good as they used to be. That's just a straight-up fact. Or it takes a little bit longer for those quarterbacks to develop. Because you have to take the RPO read and react quarterback and let's take some time to eventually get there. Some of them eventually get there, but it takes a lot longer, and especially with the year in football we just had where a second-year head coach wins the national championship, a second-year head coach is in the Super Bowl, and a first-year head coach is now in the Super Bowl as well. So
and that's the contrast and the contrast in style is what made them Sonic and Knuckles. That's where all that came from. And so I like it. And I still think it's a formula that can work for the Lions if they capitalize on, again, building the offensive line in the offseason. But let's get to question of the day here on 223.
Yes, sir. But before we do that, Salt Athletic, an official sponsor, is here at the National Soccer Network. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off the #1 smell-proof cleat bag that 100% works. Scan the QR code on your screen or visit saltathletic.com today. And tomorrow, Friday, what is Friday? It's the Salt Athletic Bag giveaway. If you want to enter, there's still time before tomorrow's show. You will be entered into tomorrow's drawing. Just head to our Instagram, NatSoccerTV. Drop us a follow on Instagram there. Tag a friend and comment #NSN Salt Giveaway. And we will be doing it right here tomorrow on the show. We'll just do a nice little wheel. A couple of people have already entered. And if you want to have a chance to be entered, make sure you do that here tomorrow. But question of the day. I saw this on social media yesterday, and some people on social media, man. Will we actually lose gravity for 7 seconds on August 12th this year?
What?
Did you not see that on social media yesterday?
No, I did. What is this?
So my buddy sends a video into our group chat, and I didn't really know anything of it either. And he sends it. He goes, "Guys, we might lose 7 seconds of gravity, and NASA knows about it, but no one's it's a whole conspiracy theory about it." And I'm like, "Well, if we lose 7 seconds of gravity, if you're outside, well, you're dead, because once we gain gravity back and drop down, you're just gonna drop 150, 200 feet up in the air. So you got to be in a room like Nate and I are in right now, because then you just go up into the ceiling, and if you fall down, you might break a leg or an ankle."
Yeah, but the foundation of the house might get ripped out because there's no gravity. There's nothing holding anything down. So I might go up with the house,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
that is the
strapped to my
conspiracy theory.
mattress in the hopes that maybe I can. Wow. Oh my goodness. Jeez. Will we? I hope not. I sincerely hope not. That would be terrible. The casualties that would cause. My God.
Yeah,
I
estimated 40 million people would die in these 7 seconds.
Hey man, I will say that I have lived through, I believe, 2 different doomsday scenarios.
2012.
They said the world was going to end in 2012. I was at my cottage at the time. I was actually just sitting outside waiting for it to happen. And it didn't. So thank God for that. And I do think that there was another cult recently that predicted the end of times and
Y2K?
did the whole mass suicide thing. Was that what it was?
Well, 2000 Y2K was a thing that everyone thought the world was going to end.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you lived through another one, and if you're thinking of another one, you've lived through 3.
Well, yeah. So, anyways, I would certainly hope.
Yeah, one of the wasn't that the Mayan calendar that said, let's see, doomsday scenarios that didn't happen. Let's see. 10 failed predictions. Yep, the 2012 Mayan apocalypse, Y2K, something in 1999, prediction of King of Terror destroying the planet in July. That never happened. Harold camping prediction in 2011. I don't know what that means. Conspiracy theory that in 2012 again, man, how did we survive 2012? They thought that a rogue planet would collide with the Earth.
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember that one.
2008 fears that particle experience would create a black hole. Well, there you go.
All I'll say is I don't think any of us know, and when it does happen, none of us are going to be ready anyways. So
yeah,
just live your life, man. Just go out and have some fun. Do what you want to do, and hopefully it'll all work out at the very end. So
yeah, and
that's
listen to us every single day.
Yeah, there you go. That's quite the way to wrap up this show. But as Ryan said, weekdays 9 to 11. One more show coming up tomorrow on Friday before we wrap up the week. Always give us a follow on the National Soccer Network here on Inside the Game. Got one more tomorrow, and then we'll wrap things up. Obviously, as we get closer to World Cup time, we're going to be giving you those top moments as the countdown continues. And obviously, until we see you guys tomorrow, this has been another edition of Inside the Game.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wenger bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the